Exactly 6 p.m. on the button. I am going to do some changing as far as the agenda. I'm going to move the proclamations up ahead of the presentations. So these ladies that could leave when they want to. They don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's like church.
That's a good one. Okay. Roll call.
Jim Basile,
Here.
Andy Dennison,
Present.
Lydia Patty Ruffini. Here. Chris Petrus,
Here.
Eileen McNabb Coleman is excused. Bob Shay.
Here.
Hans Petcher,
Here.
Mark Strong,
Here.
Heidi Nightingale. Present. Elaine Daly. Here. Trish Kerr. Here. Christina Clarko. Here. Michael Didio.
Here.
Brian Muldrow.
Here.
David Gould.
Here. Okay, before we stand, can you stand for the pledge and then remain standing for a moment of silence? But can everybody turn their cell phones to mute or turn them off, please? Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Be seated, everyone, please. Okay, we have a public hearing today, so I will start off with that. If anybody wishes to speak at the public hearing, the number is 315-94-8051. If you wish to speak on this public hearing, Restored New York application regarding the grant application and property assessment list. The following is that the property assessment list at 197 State Street, Auburn, New York, approximately 17,380 square feet, residential rehabilitation, vacant surplus property. So if anyone wishes to call in, feel free. It's going to be open for probably an hour. Okay, again, we're going to do the little switching. We're going to do the proclamations first. So the first one will be the Underground Railroad Month, September 2022. I will read this proclamation. Whereas the Underground Railroad is considered by many to be the first great freedom movement in the Americas and the first time that people of different races and faiths work together in harmony for freedom and justice. And whereas through the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom Act of 1998, Public Law 105-203, the National Public Service established the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom Program to tell the story of resistance against slavery in the United States by education efforts and integrating local historical sites, museums in New York. New York State's significantly presence and place in the Network to Freedom is represented by events, tours, research center, as well as 22 historic sites, 7 churches, and 4 marked sites that highlight the Underground Railroad experience. And whereas the Underground Railroad was not an actual railroad, it was comprised of a network of people and safe houses. Railroad terminology and symbols were used to conceal the secret activities of the network. Individuals such as Harriet Tubman, who is one of the most recognized icons in American history, and one of the most famous conductors on the railroad, helped enslaved people on their journeys to freedom, were called conductors. And whereas Auburn, New York is the place Harriet Tubman chose to call home for over 50 years, she led enslaved people to freedom before the Civil War, all while carrying a bounty on her head. She was also a nurse, a Union spy, and a women's suffrage supporter. Her legacy has inspired countless people from every race and background. Now therefore it be resolved that I, Dave Gould, Chair of the Cayuga County Legislature, and fellow legislators do hereby proclaim the month of September 2022 as Cayuga County Underground Railroad Month. I encourage all citizens to take time to learn about New York State and Cayuga County's deep ties to the Underground Railroad and the journey that brought many to a life of freedom, and we are humbled and proud to have a part in advancing this purpose. I'm going to present this to Pauline. Would you please come up, Pauline? And your daughter, Deidre, please. Would you come up? Would you like to say anything, Pauline or Deidre? It's up to you two. Here, I'll come now.
Okay.
If you'd like to say something, just stand right there.
Okay.
Congratulations, Pauline. Thank you so much. Okay, that's yours. You're very, very welcome.
Can we get
On behalf of my mother, Pauline Copes Johnson, and myself, other relatives will have their own words to say, I'm sure.
Yes.
We thank you very much. We are humbly thankful for this.
I accept this proclamation in honor of Aunt Harriet. And I'm sure all of you know that I'm a great grandniece and I'm 95 years old. And anyhow, I'm very thankful, very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My sister and I, my name is Michelle Jones Galvin, my sister Adrienne Roderick, and we hail from Syracuse, New York. And we were a little late because we were parked in the city hall parking lot for about 20 minutes. Where is everybody? Anyway, I went back to the email that our lovely Karen Cole sent me and realized we were supposed to be here. Tonight, we want to thank you so much for this proclamation. It is very meaningful, not only to Pauline and her family, but there are many of us, not only in Syracuse, Buffalo, Chicago, Florida, Maryland, and we all collectively thank each and every one of you.
Thank you.
Now, I would just like to ask Legislator Gould, we know that you presented the proclamation to Pauline, but might we have copies for our own family archive?
Absolutely. We'll
Thank
do
you so
them for
much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone, for acknowledging Aunt Harriet through this proclamation. As being a descendant of Aunt Harriet, she has brought a lot of strength to all of our families. And on behalf of everyone, as my sister said, to all the various states that are all the descendants, we appreciate this day that Auburn has given us the proclamation for Aunt Harriet. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Just drop in one couple more notes for everybody. I will leave up front here with the tourism office and the city historian and county historian. We put together a brochure on the Underground Railroad sites in both the city and the county. It leads to an app that you can download and do a self-drive. I will leave plenty of copies. So you can take some home to your friends and relatives or to your businesses and explore all the sites in the county. And they do go everywhere. So, and any additions, let us know.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and feel free to get up and leave anytime you want to, because I'm sure you don't want to stay here all day. So feel free anytime. Okay, our next proclamation is Pleasant Roland Day, and I don't know if everybody in here knows who Pleasant Roland is, but I think you do. American Doll. Has everybody ever heard of American Doll? She is a very generous lady from Minnesota who went to school at Wells College, graduated, and comes back here frequently. I had the opportunity to present a proclamation to her last week, 2 weeks ago, when she was in town. She is getting a little bit older, so I don't know how many times she'll be back, but she has donated millions, literally hundreds of millions of dollars to the village of Aurora and the Cayuga County. So we thought we'd recognize her as a day in Cayuga County, and she was very, very, very appreciative. So thank you. Presentations. Lydia, would you like to introduce Bobby Ann?
Yes, thank you. I bring this matter and this visitor to you today because we need to be aware of the threats to our rights and our freedoms as New York State residents and as legislators sworn to uphold the Constitution. This is a nonpartisan issue. Bobby Ann Flower Cox has been a New York attorney for almost 25 years, formerly with a large international law firm. Bobby Ann is now the principal at Cox Lawyers PLLC. She has extensive experience representing clients against overreaching government actions. She recently won a historic lawsuit against New York Governor Kathy Hochul and her Department of Health, striking down their unconstitutional quarantine camp regulations. And this was important to bring here because I haven't heard about it. And most everybody I spoke to was not aware that this was a thing. Governor Hochul and Attorney General Letitia James plan to appeal. Bobby Ann, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, thank you for asking me to present to the legislature tonight. So as Lydia said, my name's Bobby Ann Cox. I'm an attorney here in New York. I've been practicing for about 25 years. And last year, somebody brought to my attention this regulation known as isolation and quarantine procedures, found at 10 NYCRR 2.13. The regulation, I'll just give you a little bit of history on what it said. So the regulation was issued through the New York State Department of Health. It would have allowed the Department of Health to pick and choose which New Yorkers they could have locked up or locked down. That means they could have locked you down in your home and forced you to stay inside, or they could have removed you from your home and put you into a quarantine facility of their choosing. The Department of Health did not need to prove that you had a communicable disease. The Department of Health did not need to prove you were even exposed to a communicable disease. They could have kept you locked up or locked down for however long they wanted. There was no time restraint in this regulation. They could have used local law enforcement to enforce their orders of isolation or quarantine, which means you could have gotten a knock on the door from the sheriff or the local police, removing you from your home or forcing you to stay locked down in your home. There was no age restriction. So that means they could have issued an order of isolation or quarantine to you. They could have issued it to your child, to your grandchild, to your parent, to your elderly grandparent. There was absolutely no restriction on age. And the other thing that they put into this regulation was that the Department of Health, could tell you what you could and couldn't do while you were in quarantine. So that could have meant anything. The language was very broad. They could have taken your cell phone. They could have cut off your internet access. They could have told you what you couldn't eat or had to eat, or medications you had to take, or when to sleep, how long to sleep. I mean, the language was so broad. The power was completely unfettered. And they gave it to themselves. And what I mean by that is regulations, as many of you know, regulations come from agencies, which is the executive branch of government. But in order to make a regulation, there needs to be authority from a statute coming from the legislature. Otherwise, you would have agencies doing whatever they wanted and making up rules that could be in violation of laws passed by, or statutes or ordinances passed by the legislature. And that's exactly what happened here. My lawsuit was a separation of powers argument, which means that I argued that the executive branch, where the governor and her Department of Health sit, did not have the power to make this regulation. It was a breach of separation of powers. Only the legislature can make law. And what this regulation was really a law. They were calling it a regulation, but it was a law. And the executive branch of government doesn't have the power to make a law. So the petitioners, my plaintiffs on this case, are a group of New York State legislators, Senator George Borrello, Assemblyman Chris Tague, Assemblyman Mike Lawler, together with a citizens group called Uniting New York State. They are the plaintiffs on the case. And there was also an amicus brief that was written and submitted to the court in support of our case. And that was written by another group of New York State legislators, authored by Assemblyman Andy Goodell, who's also an attorney. And a part of that brief was also Assemblyman Joseph Giglio and Assemblyman Will Barclay. And basically, the Attorney General's office is who represents the governor and the Department of Health. And so we were up against the Attorney General's office. And after a few months of fighting back and forth, we had our oral arguments. And then in July, the judge ruled in our favor. He deemed that regulation unconstitutional. He said it was a breach of separation of powers. They didn't have the authority to make the regulation. He struck it down as null and void. It is no longer in existence, and it is unenforceable. So within a week, the Attorney General and the governor filed a notice of appeal, which means they intend to appeal the decision. They have not actually filed the appeal papers yet, and I have a suspicion that's because the election is in about 5 weeks. So I'm sure they don't want the voters of New York to know that they are trying to overturn a New York State Supreme Court decision that says that they made an illegal regulation, which would have allowed them unfettered power to lock up New Yorkers or lock down New Yorkers at their whim. So, and I want to point out also that this regulation was not just about COVID-19. The regulation was about all communicable diseases, and the Department of Health has a list of communicable diseases, which is a few pages long. And there, yes, COVID-19 is on that list, as are things like monkeypox and polio, tuberculosis, toxic shock syndrome is on the list, Lyme disease is on the list. So you can see that the list is these are just some examples of diseases on the list. Not really all of those are communicable diseases in the way that we would think of them. And certainly not all of them are lethal. So the regulation was really a gross overstep in executive branch power. And the fact that the governor and the attorney general are now planning to appeal the case, I think says a lot about, what is going on as far as having an order and a rule of law. An agency can't make a regulation that conflicts with the Constitution. That's illegal. An agency can't make a regulation that conflicts with existing New York state law. That's illegal. And this regulation did conflict not only with the Constitution, but also with existing New York state law. We have Public Health Law, Section 2120, is a state law that we have, and we've had it for about 70 years. And it talks about how you quarantine or isolate people if they are a public health threat. But that law has many due process protections built into it, so that there isn't government abuse, there isn't government overreach when executing this law. The number one thing that Section 2120 of the Public Health Law says is that the person that you are trying to put into quarantine or isolation has to actually have the communicable disease that you think that they have. So, that's step number one. And then there are a whole bunch of other steps that have to be taken in order for you to actually be able to force that person into isolation or quarantine because they are a public health threat. But this regulation that was made by Governor Hochul and the Department of Health was absolutely void, 100% void of any sort of due process protections. Due process protections are in our Constitution. We have to have protections in our laws and in our regulations made by agencies that ensure that the government doesn't overreach and abuse the power that we, the people, the voters, have given them. And this regulation was devoid of any sort of due process protection. And in fact, the judge in his decision, he spoke specifically about the due process. And he said that this regulation gave lip service to due process. They said, well, yeah, in keeping with due process, but there wasn't one shred of due process in this regulation. So this is something that most New Yorkers don't know about. People have really questioned this regulation and its sincerity. I can assure you, I have spent all of 2022 working on this case. It is real. It is now struck down, but they are vowing to try to appeal to get the power back. And it's something that New Yorkers need to know about. It's something that you as a county legislature should know about, because violations of our Constitution and breaches of separation of power are going on all over, not just New York, but all over the country, even at the federal level. And it's so important that everybody stay in their lane. The Constitution has 3 branches of government. Our society is built upon checks and balances, and this is how we function successfully. as a humane society. If one of those branches crosses over and takes the power of another branch of government, that's tyranny. You cannot have the executive branch taking the power of the legislature, making laws, and laws that conflict with laws that were properly passed by the legislature, or conflicting with the Constitution. You can't have that happening, because the executive branch, as you know, yes, the head of the executive branch is elected, but all of those agencies that fall under the executive branch are not elected. So Governor Hochul is elected. However, well, technically she wasn't elected, but she's running for office. If she's elected, she's going to have all of these agencies still under her in the executive branch, including the Department of Health. And she gets to appoint the head of the Department of Health and the head of all the other agencies. Those are unelected officials. So the head of the Department of Health answers only to the executive, the governor. If you have voters who are trying to have their wants and their needs and their desires and their rights represented by their legislators that they've elected to represent them, that's not happening if you allow an agency like the Department of Health to make a law or to make a regulation, which is really a law cloaked as a regulation, that conflicts with laws and that conflicts with the Constitution. So you're extinguishing the voice of the voters if you allow the executive branch to take the power of the legislature. So that is really, in a nutshell, what I'd like to share with you tonight. And I'm happy to take questions and try and answer anything about the case, about the regulation, about the judge's decision, because I think that this topic is not being discussed, and voters should really know what's going on at all levels. We have a very important election coming up on November 8th.
Thank you, Bobby Ann. Is there any questions for Bobby Ann? Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Have a
yes.
great day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation will be Chris Travanci, whatever. How do you pronounce it, Chris?
Travantani.
You got it. All right.
That guy
That was
too.
close.
Yeah, I had the Trev right.
That was like close to me.
Chris, it's all yours.
Come up, sir.
Absolutely. Come right up front, please. I think people do remember Chris. Chris has been here before. I hope some of you remember Chris. This is regarding Restore New York, Chris?
Yes.
Yes.
So thank you everyone for giving me an opportunity to come back and present to you our proposed development here in the county. Last we talked, I kind of gave an overview and a timeline of what the property and the project was going to look like. Since that time, there's been an additional funding source that is available for the project. So this presentation is part of the public hearing for the Restore New York grant. So next slide. So over the past year and a half, Housing Vision's been working in collaboration with various members of the City of Auburn staff, Cayuga County councilors, legislators, Department of Social Services, Chapel House, Gabber Center, Auburn Housing Authority, Cayuga Health Network, and others. And just the sheer number of groups I just mentioned shows kind of the level of importance of what we're trying to battle here, and that is the homeless housing crisis here in the county. So what we have proposed, and again, the first step I think happened here, and I'd like to thank you all again, was the $250,000 kind of pre-development grant, we'll call it, to help us with some due diligence and moving forward. So as a result of that, I can tell you we do have the property at 292 Grand Avenue under contract. It's Chapel House Homeless Shelter. We're in the middle of our due diligence period. We completed a phase 1 environmental site assessment. That came back fine. So we're in the process now of performing some architectural design renderings and cost estimates. And what we're looking at now is we can fit somewhere between 50 and 56 shelter beds. It's a tremendous increase from what is there now. In addition to that, we think we're able to provide 6 permanent supportive housing units. That's in addition to the emergency shelter beds. At a meeting today with Chapel House staff, Last week, New York State came out with another funding proposal, which was round 7 of the Empire State Supportive Housing Initiative. So we are working and helping Chapel House put their ESHI application together. And what this application does is it provides $25,000 per unit for operating expenses. So this will help Chapel House increase their staff, increase their security. So if we're able to get this building funded and constructed, Chapel House will be able to afford multiple staff, 24/7 security to manage the facility. So in addition to Grand Avenue, the city of Auburn last Thursday night approved our purchase contract for 197 State Street. For those of you, that's the old Polish home on 197 State Street, been vacant for quite some time. So we have some preliminary drawings there to convert that building into 16 one-bedroom apartments. We'll also have community space, laundry, and storage. So in addition to those 2 properties, Housing Visions, we currently own the properties at 35 Westlake, 8 and 4, 1214 Ford Street. What we're looking to there as part of this overall scattered site development is rehabilitate those and reposition some of those units there to modernize them and make them more compatible with the support services and new units that we're proposing there. And then lastly, this is a work in progress, but we're continuing to work with the city. Councilor Giantino has been very active in the Housing Authority. So we're trying to identify some strategic properties on the west side. So on Barber, Washington, and Derby. If you've driven back there, you can see there's a couple of properties that are either vacant, dilapidated, just abandoned. So it's our goal to acquire those either through foreclosure or some other means, either demolish or rehab those into good quality housing. So all 4 of these components are part of what we're calling the homeless housing development in Cayuga County. So as we're working on that, I mentioned the new funding source. So the Restore New York Communities Initiative, the RFP came out in August. And what it is it provides financial assistance for revitalization of communities through the elimination and redevelopment of blighted structures. One of the goals is to attract residents and businesses by redeveloping residential, commercial, and mixed-use properties. The one thing that's kind of different from other funding sources is the project application can only be submitted by a county, town, village, or city. So when this RFP came out, we met with the city, we met with the county, and said, here's some funds that we're eligible for. Can we partner? Can we work with you to apply for these funds? And thankfully, Cayuga County said, yes, we are willing to work with you and apply for that. So what buildings are eligible for Restore New York? So buildings that are vacant, abandoned, condemned, or surplus properties that are owned by municipalities. Those are the only 4 categories that are eligible for Restore New York. And what can you do with those buildings? You can either demolish, deconstruct, rehabilitate, or reconstruct. So based on that criteria and the properties that I previously mentioned, the one building that is eligible is 197 State Street. It's considered vacant, it's abandoned, it's condemned, and it's surplus. So it fits all 4 categories there. And then we are proposing to, again, rehabilitate that into 16 residential units. So the goals and scoring of the initiative, again, to revitalize communities and introduce commercial investment. We think investment in 197 State Street, we're probably thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $6 billion. Will certainly provide a boost to that street, that immediate neighborhood. It will improve the local housing stock. It will increase the tax base. We are going to put that back on the tax rolls. And then in terms of scoring, projects in economically distressed communities, this part of the city has considered that category. And then projects that leverage other state or federal redevelopment funds. This Restore New York is the maximum you can ask for is $2 million. Based on the entire project I just mentioned, we're thinking $3 to $24 million. So we will certainly be leveraging this 2 million of Restore with other state and federal resources to do this development. Second, I mentioned funding limits. So the 3 criterias of municipalities that can apply: cities over 100,000, population less census. That doesn't qualify. Cities and villages between 40 and 999,000. So we are in the all other municipality category. So the maximum we can ask for is $2 million. In terms of the application process, there was a 1-page intent to apply that was due on August 11th. So I worked with Liz and Reed from the county. They've been very receptive and amenable when we need to. They're there to work with us. So very gracious for their efforts. So we did submit on August 11th, and what that does is just make sure that what you're applying for is eligible. So we did get positive feedback from ESD that yes, 197 State Street is eligible. So we're ready for the full application. That full application is due October 11th. The materials are the assessment list, which I think is published in paper, property packet, budget, municipal resolution, a letter of matching funds. So the municipal resolution, the city of Auburn did pass last Thursday, just saying that it's redevelopment is part of their overall comprehensive plan and part of their city master plan. Letter of matching funds, housing visions, we will commit to the matching fund requirements. So it'll be 10% of what the Restore award is. So whatever that is, we will commit to the overall project. So the thing that's required tonight is the public hearing. So we are holding the public hearing. That's the kind of last piece of this application that we need to put together. So in a nutshell, that's the Restore New York funding that we're applying for. It's a snapshot of where we are on our homeless housing project. I guess there's any questions.
Good question. The strategic decision to do the 16 1-bedrooms really is because of the unmet need that the city has or the county has in terms of housing those safety net clients that do not have access to affordable housing.
Yes.
And that's where we would see a huge return on the investment, because that's the most expensive case that the county is searching to house, especially in hotels.
Right. So in hotels, so we're hoping this solves 2 problems. So the expansion of the Chapel House to 56 beds. Right now, I think they're on 11 or 13. So that additional capacity will get people out of the hotels immediately, but they can't stay there every day. So our thought is they get services from Chapel House, DSS, Cayuga Health Network. We're going to 3 providers to really help this population. Once we think they're ready, they can then receive services at another 1-bedroom. So there could be some units at State Street set aside for this population for a 1-year lease. They'll get training, job force training, other life counseling skills to stay housed, sign a 1-year lease, and then have services available.
Because sometimes it's difficult to move people out of the housing and to have them have permanent housing that they can afford.
Right.
And this will help.
This will do that.
Jim, I want to understand, do you have to do this Restore New York for each one of those addresses, or that's bundled together?
So the only address that's eligible for Restore is 197 State Street.
Oh, okay. And these others are
Considered
potential.
abandoned surplus.
I'm sorry.
Condemned.
All right, and so the others, are they potential projects that you're looking at?
The others, we are looking for other sources to do.
All right. Thanks.
So Restore New York is one of, like, I want to say about 8 or 10.
Okay.
I've got a question, Chris. What do we do next? What does the county need to do? Do we need to do anything?
No, I think you've published the notice of the hearing. We provide proof that you held the hearing. And then we have the application packet and we are populating all that. We'll prepare all the necessary materials, and then we will just need to submit it when we're done.
And that is what you say, October 11th?
It's at 3 p.m.
Maybe close to that. Any other questions? I just want to thank Todd, Trish, and Elaine. Both of them have been working with Chris a lot, and Lynn and Shereen naturally, and other agencies in this county, because it's a great thing. We've needed this in this county, this type of thing forever and ever and ever. So we appreciate you helping us with this and helping us. Certainly the people are going to benefit from this. We appreciate it very much. Anything else from Chris?
A question, we're gonna expand Chapel House?
The plan is to demolish the existing 2 buildings that are there, and build 1 new building with 56 beds and 6 permanent. So, yeah, it'll look a lot different.
Thanks for the question, Doc. Just so you know, doctor is our county physician. Thanks. Anybody else for anything for Chris at all? Okay, Chris, we appreciate it. Chris Trevisani,
Yep.
got it.
You got it.
Practice works, doesn't it? Thanks again, Chris. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions in the future. I know I'll have some myself, so. Privilege of the floor. Nobody contacted Amanda or Sheila, so nobody with privilege of the floor? If not, minutes to approve, August 18th and August 23rd, motion? Second?
Second, Mark.
All right, any discussion? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Passed. Communications and announcements. Anyone got anything? Okay. CCC, Dr. Durant, is he on?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doc, go ahead.
Good to be with you. Trustee Klink is also with me online tonight, so I appreciate him taking the time as well. I'll be brief. Obviously, we're at the end of September, and late August, early September represents the start of our fall semester, the start of our 22-23 academic year. And this fall certainly feels a little bit more like the normal profession that I got into in higher education by having increased activities on our Auburn and Fulton campus and engagement. More of our classes have moved back to be in person or hybrid. A hybrid meaning that students are able to engage both in a synchronous way from a distance or on campus, trying to make sure we still provide equal access to people near and far. But it certainly has felt a little bit more like a vibrant campus, and that's something that is inspiring for our faculty and staff, and we like to see it. I'm pleased to report that although it is only the end of month 1 of our academic year and fiscal year, for those that are a little less familiar, we did reach our intended fall enrollment goal, which is a nice thing from certainly from my perspective, our board of trustee perspective, because when we try to build our budget and our financial modeling, obviously enrollment is a major factor to what we anticipate to expect in revenues. And knowing that we are at least at this point on pace to be true to what we hoped for, that certainly provides us with a chance to focus on the ongoing work of the college without having to make any early fiscal year adjustments or pivot to make any financial changes on the expense side. We, related to expenses, of course, we will be kicking off our audit season, I think at the end of next month, beginning in November. And the work will be done with an audit to be delivered to our trustees in early 2023 as our typical timeline. Our administrative services staff is working diligently on our year-end closing at the end of August and in getting it prepared for the audit process. Always confusing when you look at county, state, and the college on the different fiscal years and how it impacts. And I know as legislators, I'm sure sometimes it's difficult to figure out which fiscal year someone's referring to. So ours is September 1 through August 31 at the college. Also, also what we've been focused on, and I referenced this a few times over the last year through the direction of our College Board of Trustees, really started about 2 years ago. And then working through, I would say, a very comprehensive and collaborative internal college process. We are, nearing the later stages of our development of the college's next strategic plan. Our Board of Trustees are reviewing and providing feedback. Our faculty and staff have recently provided feedback to the college's President's Council, and that council will be formulating a final recommendation to me, to the board, and hopefully as early as November. Talking with Chair Gould over the summer, we want to look to have some meetings with legislators to talk about the direction of the college and have conversations, later on in this, fall and winter, to be able to connect more in person and to have some more discussions about the institution and the community as a whole. So I look forward to those discussions and appreciate the chair's guidance and suggestion in doing so. So other than that, we at the institution we're in the middle of our academic year. We're planning ahead and trying to outline our goals and objectives for the rest of this year, and continuing to put together the final pieces on some of our major capital projects. We're hoping that next month we'll be bringing forth a resolution to leverage our HERF funds at the college to upgrade a significant portion of the Auburn campus HVAC, primarily related to Spartan Hall and the library. Those are already capital projects that you as a legislature approved over a year ago, but we're updating our funding sources, and I'll talk more about that next month, hopefully when the resolutions are in front of you. In addition to that, we have leveraged and been sorting out the final pieces to bid out the Workforce Development Center, and working with our architect and working with the State University of New York and our capital planning. We're hoping to be able to have a bid prepared to be able to go out for construction bid as early as January for a late winter, early spring 23 construction timeline, as we have, we've done significant amount of work in-house with our talented facility staff, and we've positioned ourselves to be able to move ahead, hopefully in full force here in the spring and winter 2023. So stay tuned on our capital updates, and certainly we'll keep you posted on enrollment and other activities at the college, next month. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dr. Durant? Lydia?
Hi, Dr. Durant. It's Lydia. How are you?
I'm well, Lydia. How are you?
Good, thank you. As you probably know, I'm going to ask about the vaccine requirement, and the reason why is because it's not a federal requirement, and I am afraid that we are losing revenue to online options from other locations, as well as students moving out of the area to attend college where it's not a requirement, and then perhaps never returning. Do you have any update on the potential of reversing that requirement?
No, I don't have any update. It continues to be a SUNY mandate. My understanding is, and I know that it was referenced in your last meeting, that a SUNY college community college was looking to waive the requirement, and between the time that it was heard and perhaps the time that it was talked about at the floor here, that decision was reversed by that community college, and all 64 campuses continue to be required to enforce the vaccine mandate for those students who have an on-campus obligation. So online continues to be an option and from a distance, but certainly your sentiments about what are the unintended consequences of other barriers, whether it be a vaccine or other potential ones that colleges may have to being an attractive option for students. Those are always our concerns from an enrollment perspective. But as for a change from the requirement upon SUNY to us as a SUNY community college, there has been no change at this point.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yep.
Well, it's Andy.
Where are we enrollment wise compared to like 3, 4, 5 years ago?
So enrollment wise, the college since about 5 years ago, and I'll share this in detail. I could share this in detail in a couple, next month or so, or when we meet. So the college enrollment wise is down approximately, hold me specifically to the number, but I will say about 30% since 2015 or 16. Now, what we're seeing, and we just had a work retreat with our college trustees, that percent that Cayuga County is experiencing is actually very similar in line and perhaps slightly better than other colleges across the state. We've talked extensively about the demographic shifts, the shrinking high school classes and our enrollment bases across the state. But, certainly the SUNY community colleges as a whole have been down since 2014, 15. I would say well over between 30 and 40%. And we're no different than them, unfortunately. We continue to see growth in some of our initiatives when it comes to enrollment, but that's why our focus has been on quality programming and stabilizing our finances, which we've done well with the leadership. But the size of our institution continues to certainly be what it is based on our population base and our service area, which for us is approximately 40 minutes, and from each of our campuses. That's our mission, and that certainly is where we have to spend most of our priority.
Just a quick follow-up then, because I know Onondaga County OCC is dropped more than you guys have. I mean, we have a Cayuga Onondaga BOCES. Has there ever been any talk of OCC and CCC, some kind of merging? Do we need two community colleges a half an hour drive away from each other that are continuing to lose, enrollment the way they're losing it?
Well, I think, certainly, I think those types of questions are the ones that need to be asked. And I wouldn't just make it about, obviously Cayuga is our priority, right? But I wouldn't just make it about Cayuga. When you look at, it's probably similar for school districts, although not my expertise, right? When you look at the districting of school districts and you look at the demographics themselves, how do we best serve the residents of New York in higher education or K-12, obviously? And what should the structures be? And I think, the conversation really needs to be had or discussed strategically across the state as one. And two, Cayuga County is the sponsor of Cayuga, right? So, for changes to be had, there's local exploration or there's state exploration, I would guess. But I would just say, as the president of the institution, we're open to explore things that make sense, whether it be with leadership of our trustees or leadership with our trustees and sponsor, or something that happens at the state level. But our priority has to continue to be to be focused on us. Now, what I will say, though, that we are doing without mandates or others, and we're proud of this, and not to overuse a term that some may feel have their own personal views against, but to make some common language about it, is we have partnered with OCC and with other colleges on sharing services, leveraging talent, and trying to maximize talent to help with some of the overhead and some of the required work of us. So we have a great project in place in partnership in the area of institutional research and in the area of state reporting. We've had partnerships with some purchasing aspects. We've had partnerships with advocacy and a number of other key areas that we've been able to leverage the institution without adding costs, and I think building capacity that we otherwise wouldn't have. And that's been a great place to start. And through the leadership of OCC and other colleges with our trustees, and certainly a vision of my own, we've been working focused on that for the last 3 or 4 years and have made some nice inroads. So I think those are the beginning stages, and who knows bigger picture where it goes. And Legislator Dennison, I appreciate the perspective that perhaps as we look ahead 5, 10, 20 years from now, maybe the world or landscape needs to be different to match, the ever-changing, population dynamics.
Okay, anyone else for Dr. Durant? If not, thank you very much, Dr. Durant. Have a great night, please.
Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to make an announcement one more time for the public hearing. If you wish to speak regarding Restore New York application, call 315-294-8893. 8051. Thank you. We'll go right to committee reports and individual legislators reports, and I think we got Lydia and Brian.
Yes, I was wondering which part it was at. Do you have your,
Yeah, yeah, so we've been making quite a bit of progress. I think that we should have the applications a week ahead of time, so you guys can notify the constituents. It's going to be a massive marketing campaign to get out the information through social media, through press releases, as well as contacting the municipalities and plenty of time in public hearings so that you guys have time. Also, there'll be a link that CETA is going to be putting on that can be shared among people as well, that's sent directly to them. There'll be drop-off spots for paper as well as most of the stuff will be taken online. I'm trying to see this list. It looks like the 20th, we're going to be done November. We have a date of November sometime, like the second week of November, possibly. I can't see it from here.
okay, I'm sorry. So the grant program guidelines and application forms are being finalized along with the online application portal. A CETA presentation to the full legislature will be presented on Tuesday, October 25th. The public rollout will be Tuesday, November 1st. The application deadline, this is when applicants have to turn their documents in, will be Thursday, December 15th, providing a 45-day application window for businesses to complete and submit grant applications. The next step would be CETA to complete review and processing of grant applications, which will be due by Friday, January 6th. Figuring that between Christmas and New Year's really don't exist in businesses and in government as far as work time is concerned. The 5-member grant awards committee, and this is a group of folks who are not department related or not legislature related. They will review completed applications and provide grant award recommendations by Friday, January 20th. The county will contact awarded businesses and circulate grant agreements to awardees by Monday, February 6th, 2023. And issuance of grant monies will be completed as soon as administratively possible following receipt of executed grant contracts.
I think that's
February 6th. Is when the county will contact awarded businesses and circulate grant agreements to awardees.
Is there any questions for Lydia or Brian? If not, I just want to thank them, both of them naturally. When I asked for volunteers for this committee, Brian and Lydia both raised their hands, and I appreciate that very much. Shireen has been working with them, Steve Lynch, Kim Imperato, and CETA. So I want to thank all of you. It's not been easy. It's been several months. And you've done a great job. So it's almost to the finish line. So thank you.
Awesome.
Okay. What do we got here? My report. Okay. It'll be short. I always start with thanking my fellow legislators. I appreciate it very much. I mean, I've gotten to know all of you. I've knew a lot of you before, but I think we all became pretty good friends here, and I hope we can stay that way. Thank all the county employees. That's all what I always do. Secondly, we've got a great bunch of people that work for this county. Every county chairman probably should be saying that about their own county. But I've been around the state, around the country, around the world, and I know this is the best county in the world. Like I used to say that about the undersheriff, the best undersheriff in the world. But this is a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to raise our families. So thank you. Next, I want to thank all the several members of our staff, including the 4 legislators, for their diligent work regarding the county office building. This was one of my priorities when we started, and I think several others, but we met for the first time last week. There were several of us, and I think we got a lot accomplished for the first meeting. It's going to take time. It's going to take months and months and months for us finally to make a decision. But to make that decision, we need all the information we could get. And that's what we're gathering now. So we'll certainly be talking to everybody here as we go along and keep you updated what's happening. Budget talks with the department heads. Lynn, I want to thank you so very much. I don't know where I'd be without you, and I appreciate you being in all these meetings. Several of the committee chairs have been in these meetings, and I want to thank them. We're about probably 2/3 done with meeting with all the department heads regarding their budgets. So I'm sure Lynn and myself will be putting something together within a month or two, probably a month. But we'll keep you updated. But thank you, department heads, for coming and meeting with us and being honest on your budgets. Contract negotiations. I think we all know there's 4 unions up this year, all 4. And we've met with SEAC and we're almost completed with that. I think it's just some wording. That's the custody officers. The next will be the Sheriff's Road Patrol, and we're meeting, I believe it is October 18th, 19th, and 20th, 17th, 18th, 19th. It's on the calendar, but they'll be next. And after that, the Sheriff's Lieutenant's contract will be up. And last and certainly not least will be CSEA. And we'll be starting that actually to be meeting the middle of October. I imagine that will take a period of time, but I'm hoping most of these, all 3 of the other ones are done by the end of the year, and we'll finish CSEA up as quick as possible. In closing, I received 2 letters today for retirements. I think you all knew it was coming. I certainly did, but I've got the official letters today. Katie Lacy and Cheryl Harry officially sent me a letter today. They are retiring at the end of the year. They've been there forever and ever and ever. We want to thank them both so very much. Hopefully they'll be at a meeting, a full-fledged meeting before they retire, but they put a lot of years in over there, and it's certainly not an easy job. So I want to thank them both if they're listening. Okay, on to the resolutions. Hans, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Ways and Means has 5 resolutions to go into committee. And I'd like to offer them as a bundle unless somebody wants a separation. Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Elaine, Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services had 11 resolutions. I also would offer them up as a bundle unless someone would like any of them separated.
Move it.
Second.
Mark?
I'd like them HH8 separated, please.
I'm sorry, what was it?
HH8.
Elaine?
So could we get a motion
Yep.
HH 1 through 7?
Yes, motion for.
I make a motion to bundle 1 through 7 and 9 through 11.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Elaine, HH8.
HH 8 is authorizing the Director of Community Services to create and fill a grade 8 senior clerk position and abolish a grade 3 typist position at the Cayuga County Mental Health Center due to a resignation. We had some spirited discussion about this. The typist has no title and is resigned. There are senior clerks working in the front office, all doing the same functions, and the request is to replace that typist, unfund it or abolish it, and replace it with a grade 8 senior clerk.
Move it for discussion.
Second. Okay, discussion. Yeah.
Again, Elaine, we had this discussion at the committee. I guess my concern was that down the road, a year, 2 years, 5, whatever it takes, to move up in the pay raise system that we currently have. The grade 8 will obviously cost the county more money than grade, I believe it was 4. 3. So that was my concern, and I stated this the other night, was that how many grades of these people, or how many positions in the office or senior clerk positions?
I think, Lauren, there's 5.
We have 5 grade 8 grade 8 senior clerk positions, and they all do the same job as the old grade 3, correct?
Well, there was a person that resigned from a typist position, and we were looking at all of their positions, and they all do the same job and have the same duties as the senior clerk. So that's why we wanted to move the typist to a senior clerk. Because they all work in the front office, and they all do the same duties and tasks.
So you have 5 senior clerks.
Yes. And it's because of the level of work that they're doing, not necessarily that they're supervising anybody underneath them.
This is the intake part of the.
They do intake. They all rotate through the front office. They're all doing the same jobs. there's a lot of phone calls, a lot of scheduling, tasks that they do. They all do the same work. And we looked at it when somebody resigned, the typist position, change that to a senior clerk to make that all just easier and that they're all have the same title.
Jim?
So what I heard you say was senior clerk is not a supervisor, it's just a title
Just a
position.
title position. It's
And
not
it
a
puts them in a pay category. I don't know what the spread is on that, but there's probably some high and low,
Clerk might be a 3 as well. and
like a
then the
high
senior-
and low. Some of those categories may overlap,
correct.
but they have someone that supervises.
Correct. In a different title. Yes.
I just don't understand. I understand it's a title, but there's 5 people that are senior clerks. So everybody, when they come through the door, is a senior clerk because of the job that they do.
Yes.
Andy?
So do we have clerks? I mean, did we jump over? Did we go from typist, skip clerk and go right to senior clerk? Because it better, I mean, I'm a little confused too as far as.
I wish Diane was here, but in my understanding, the senior clerk
If you're a
has,
senior clerk, you gotta have a clerk to be the senior.
you have to have expanded duties and a clerk. I mean, they do additional duties than an
Are there
entry level
clerks?
clerk.
Are there clerks?
There are clerks, I think. Yep.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yep.
Are there?
And I think there's grade 3s, just like they're kind of at the same level as the entry level typist.
Okay,
I guess my point is that down the road, as I said earlier, 4 or 5 years from now, this person will move up it'll still be a grade 8, but it'll move up to.
Oh, yes.
So
Absolutely.
that in turn is going to cost the county money because of a job title.
Exactly. So this is a higher title position. And I was thinking after the meeting too, if there are a number of clerks in the front office all doing the same work, you know, I guess if you are going to assign that work to this position, you have to give them the actual title that is commensurate with the job. So I don't know how old this typist position is. There's not really that many typists now.
No, yeah.
But yes, you would have to be limiting what you could assign a grade 3 employee versus what work you have in the front
And
office
there's
that
enough
are.
work, yeah, for them to be doing.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
And I do think, again, you're right, Mark, it will be in the long run, a higher grade and more expensive. But when people leave service, that's the time, I believe, to look at the work and make sure that the person's title is appropriate. And I think that's kind of what you were
Yes.
doing at this point, from my understanding. And you didn't want to fill both. You were willing to abolish and unfund the grade 4, the grade 3, step 4, to get you the entry level grade 8.
Correct.
But yes, it will be more expensive because it's a higher title long term.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, it's been first and seconded and discussed. HH8, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
2, 3. Did you-
Andy, Mark.
Got that? Okay, thanks, Andy. Chris, government ops.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Government Operations had 10 resolutions. They've been through both committees and I would offer them as a bundle, please.
Okay, motion.
Move it, Mark.
Second. Any discussion? Discussion, Mike? Go ahead. Are you want a discussion or you're just seconding it?
No, second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Planning, Aileen's not here. Brian is vice chair. So Brian, you have one resolution, PL 1.
Yeah, one moving ARPA monies over to the harvest. Just one resolution.
Okay, motion, second.
Second, Bastille.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Public Works, Andy.
Public Works had 7. We amended 1, number 2 at the Ways and Means. So we're gonna do 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as a bundle. Unless anybody wants them separated.
Motion.
As a bundle.
Second, Mike, second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
All right, and W CW2 explained it to us that Ways and Means, basically, they have to take a little more than what they originally wanted for the church or for the drainage improvements. They're going to fix everything that they disrupt in our, how did Gary put it? That would be a benefit to us because our sidewalk and whatnot over there is pretty poor to start with, so.
PW2.
I'll second it, Mark.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Passed. Okay. Mark, Judas on public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. JPS has a total of resolutions tonight. JP3 and JP4 were pulled at committee. I would like to offer JP1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 as a bundle. All were approved at both committees.
Move it.
Second, Basile.
Okay, who made the motion first? Hans, second was Jim. Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. Ledge 1, authorizing the amendment of resolution number 36346-22, proposing the repeal of or amendment of election law insofar as they adversely affect smaller counties. And
Move it, Lydia.
this wording was changed. Bobby changed that wording, so.
Yes, we decided that there was an inaccuracy in the line that said that the Democratic and Republican commissioners of election in Cayuga County are united. That's not accurate. I did not talk to them. So this amendment will strike that wording from the resolution.
Okay, Lydia, you still make the motion?
Yes.
Second?
I'll second it, Mark.
Mark, second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
Oh,
Whoops, I'm sorry. Two opposed?
No, or
I'm sorry, four.
Five.
Okay. Five, all right. Thank you. Okay, Ledge 2, authorizing appointments to the Water and Sewer Authority. Motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed. I will now close the public hearing at exactly 7:09. And may I have a motion for adjournment?
Second it.
All in favor?
Discussion? If the Republicans are available for a caucus.
Hammering away at them. I gotta tell that boss here, he's up.
Did you hear that, Andy?